Hey Acers, I know it's been a couple days, and again, I'm going to just try and post whenever I can. But that being said, I am going to wrap up the third of the videos. But before I do, I want to just I just wanted to tell you that I've had really good, a couple of really good gaming days this last little bit. And on Thursday, I ran the grown up game of I ran the grown up game for Mythos Games, and we did Disaster at Grand Atomica. And I already know that I'm running it this fall when I do um, Halloween this year. So I'm really stoked about that. I also got to run it again on Friday, or start it on Friday, for three of my friends at work who kind of distributed the five main characters among them, and they're already hooked. They're loving it. So that was two really good game sessions in a row. And then for the third one, we just actually third one was yesterday. We did Star Wars with some friends of mine from Savage Interludes Discord, and that was a blast. And then we started a short campaign for Titan Effect today with some other friends from Savage Interludes Discord. Actually, two of them were in the game yesterday. So that's some good gaming that I've been doing lately, and I'll be glad to talk about because Star Wars role playing is like it's kind of what I've been dwelling on here a little bit with the what if episode 1 and what if episode 2, what if episode 3 were good. Um, and then and and then we're going to we're going to talk about the Star Wars role playing game and my experiences there with that. So it's it's really it's a lot of fun to be able to play these games and again spend time with the people who I want to spend time with. I, the the thing is that I I do not. It's what I was saying to some of my friends earlier today. I don't care anything that you think makes you a special snowflake or whatever it is that you want to be. What I care about is you. I care about you because you are a human being and you are worthwhile and you are somebody who likes to play the same kind of games I like to play and is worth spending time with. You're worth taking some of my time, and you're worth taking some of my time and spending time with you. So that being said, I want to go ahead and jump into this final Star Wars thing for you and just again make it so you don't have to you don't have to go out and watch these, and I'm more than willing to answer questions about it and stuff. But the guy at Belated Media, he's great, and I really like him a lot, and I really want to say when your parents think you're old enough. I mean, if you really want to watch them, let your parents watch them first, and then when your parents think you're old enough, you can go ahead and watch them. But I'm not going to be a person who encourages my teen players to be watching inappropriate movies or reading inappropriate books or anything like that because part of I mean, and I learned this as a teen when I got interested in Dungeons and Dragons. Part of getting to play these things is getting your parents to buy off on it. And since there's some swears and things like that in there, I'm not going to I'm not going to encourage you to do that. So that said, here's episode 3 of this one is what if Star Wars episode 3 were good, and this will be the last of these kind of TV review ones, or the YouTube review ones, just because I don't want to make this only a channel about me reviewing things that you're not supposed to look at. I want to continue to talk about game mastering and the things that we can do with it. So in this one here, he's going to talk about what if it were better, if episode 3 were better than what we got, and it played off that last one. So in the last one we left, Lars was flying a transport away from the planet where they just rescued, where Padme and Anakin, with his new robotic right hand, had just flown away from, or with Obi-Wan Kenobi after the clone military attacks and destroys Count Dooku and the base on Geonosis or whatever planet it was. So yeah, we're going from there. And and he asks that question: what question should the prequels serve? And you can get fan service and stuff, but the main thing that you want to focus on as a game master is making sure that you're doing stuff for your players, making sure you do things for your players to make sure that they are that that there's a purpose for it being there. Don't just have a random encounter because the book says to have a random encounter here. Don't just push don't just make your players do things because the plot says so. We don't want to write novels here. We're playing a role-playing game. However, there is something to be said about railroading to a degree. And the thing is that Disaster Grand Atomica is a very railroady adventure. However, once you accept that, it still means that the player's choices can still make a difference in the story. So we'll get back to okay, so title crawl is basically the same. We're in the midst of the Clone Wars. General Grievous is running things, but instead of catching up with the boys while they rescue the Chancellor, they're having a battle on like Mujapa or something. It shows that the Republic is winning in the war, and Obi-Wan and Anakin really work well together. They're best friends. We need to see them and what they're going to lose when the friendship falls apart. And we had a great battle, and then Padme being piloted by Owen to negotiate the terms of surrender with the Separatists on this planet. Owen's excited to go live it up on Coruscant. Obi-Wan wants to further his training, the training of other Jedi. Padme is looking to strengthen the Senate, make sure this fracturing and war can't happen again. And Anakin, we seen in the previous battle, he's much more capable now as far as combat's concerned, but he's also been pouring himself into the studies, all things dealing with the Force. He wants nothing more than to sit on the Jedi Council, but he's been rejected 3 times already. So that's the conversation kind of clues us into where all the characters are and lets us know all the things that none of them are going to get. Things are just going to get worse. None of them know it yet. So, yeah, happy fun times. Then we go to the opposite side of the coin, go to the separate base on Mustafar, and there's General Grievous, and he's pissed, and he's chopping up his droids and everything like that. General Grievous in George Lucas's version was pretty cool, but he might actually be if you watch the Clone Wars stuff. But by the time you get what you get in what if in episode 3 from Lucas, it's kind of a waste. Yeah, the summer miniseries is like summer reading. You see a neutered version of him. He's like the primary antagonist of the film. Yeah, he points out that Boba Fett was introduced in an animated thing for his film. So yeah. Anyway, he had a proper introduction in Empire though. Grievous is supposed to be pretty cool, but everything in the film begs to differ. And Mace Windu says General Grievous will run and hide like he always does. Like he always does. So we're fixing that. Grievous is ticked off. He's chopping up his droids, and Sidious is like, guys, relax. The Republic may be hitting hard, but they're also spreading themselves way thin and leaving themselves super exposed. Grievous, go for the heart, and Darth Maul's going to back you up on your endeavors. And he turns to Darth Maul and says, "Hey, buddy, super cool. You're running this war puppet show." He says this to Palpatine. He says, "We got this unfinished business with Obi-Wan. I really want to kill him. Can we make this happen sooner than later?" And Sidious is like, "Totally get you. Don't you worry. All those loose ends are going to be tied up real soon." And then we go to the Jedi Temple. Anakin being praised for his actions of acts of valor in the war so far, but he does not get the rank of Jedi Master. And Anakin doesn't take things lying down. He's a little more cocky, combative. He's like, "Why? Why am I being passed over when people who are clearly less qualified than me are getting granted a seat at the council?" Mace Windu is like, "Hold on, buddy. I'm sensing some anger here." Obi-Wan, now on the council, tries to go to bat for Anakin. He says, "I'd be pretty angry too if I kept getting rejected without an explanation." Mace turns to Obi-Wan and says, "You promised Qui-Gon you'd train Anakin in the ways of the Jedi, and you have. But there was no part of that promise that meant that we had to grant him the rank of Jedi Master." This really sucks because Anakin was born a slave. It would be granting him freedom, he thinks, but there's a ceiling on the freedom that he's gotten. He saw kind of this transfer from Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan, this exchange of ownership. He thinks that his friend and brother almost was just this whole thing was a lie, and it stings. And Anakin just humiliated storms out of the room. Padme's right there, and she's like, "How'd everything go?" And Anakin's like, "Don't want to talk about it. Just leaving here." Padme tries to cheer him up. Obi-Wan steps out, and Anakin just huffs off. Obi-Wan asks Padme if she can talk to Anakin, smooth things over, because he knows that the two of them are close. Padme's like, "Yeah, but I'm going to give Anakin his privacy." And so she goes back to the Senate. If Anakin and Padme, if they had been able to get together, or Anakin could process it, time would have been great. So fleet jumps out above Coruscant. General Grievous gets shown as just a ferocious guy, crashes his ship in the Senate, starts taking hostages, slaying guards left and right, and like there's a situation where a Jedi comes up and coming up to defend senators, slices off one of General Grievous's hands, and then General Grievous just takes the stump with singed metal and just punches him through. But it would be really cool. Lars runs in to help Padme. Padme's helping Chancellor Palpatine escape. Stays back to give cover fire. Palpatine gets picked up by droids who get picked up, and they're flying after the kidnapped Chancellor. Obi-Wan is over the radio trying to reconcile with Obi-Wan, and now Anakin, rejected 4 times, he's like, "I'm gonna just rescue the Chancellor. This is gonna prove my worth to the Council." And Anakin's view is starting to shift. He's thinking less about the big picture, more about himself. And they end up on the ship, similar situation, and instead of facing off against Dooku, they're facing off against Maul, Obi-Wan, and Anakin now has a horse in this race. He was previously humiliated by Maul and is angry at the Jedi Council. So the two are fighting very different fights. One's fighting for justice, one's fighting for glory. And they're not fighting in sync anymore, like we saw earlier in the film. And he's throwing them around, tossing them into. They're more hindrance than help. The two of them pull him together and get his arms, and they stand victorious on him. And that's when Palpatine issues the command, "Kill him." And then Darth Maul realizes, "Oh, I'm the loose end." Well, points at himself with a stub. If were Obi-Wan from a movie again, this were Obi-Wan from a movie ago, he wouldn't. He would do it, but he's not seeking revenge. He looks at Palpatine and says, "No, he must stand trial." In this moment, Obi-Wan just gets as big as he possibly can. He's bested the man who killed his master, and he's bested his emotions. And Palpatine's like, "Great, yeah, wonderful. He should stand trial, but Anakin, why don't you kill him?" Anakin's like, "I can't do that." And then Palpatine really starts to needle him. "Anakin, you can't let this monster live. If we let him live, the bureaucracy will just bog down his inevitable fate, and separatists will break him free. Then he will strike back even more furious than now. You can't let that happen." Think of all you hold dear who will pay the price. Think of your wife. And Obi-Wan's like, oh, well, and we didn't know until this moment as the audience that we make this discovery at the same time. And that leads me to a point for game mastering. What to hold back and what to share. What's player knowledge? What's character knowledge? And with you kind of want to, there's some cases, some surprises that are okay to hold back. Like, surprise, Anakin and Padme already got married. But that is that is where um, that's really something that we can discover with Obi-Wan if we're watching a movie. But if we're running a game, we want to make sure that we are keeping on top of this and making sure that if we are going to give a surprise, that we've already hinted at it. And also, it's okay for the players to know, as long as they're good players and they do their best. And if you're a player, do your best to make it so your character doesn't know what you know, and you don't make your decisions accordingly. So, as an example, in a role playing game, not many people who play role playing games actually know how to fight. Like self defense, martial arts, bladed weapons, guns, not many people know how to use those things. I do, but that's because I've also spent many years of my life training and practicing these things. That being said, there is a mechanic in role playing games, almost all role playing games, to deal with fighting. There's a mechanic in some role playing games to deal with social conflicts. And there is a mechanic in some role playing games to deal with networking and things like that. So it also makes sense to have it so where we're saying, I might not know how to fight, but my character is a special operations ordnance disposal engineer kind of person. So he'd know how to do this. And we just try to narrate it as best we can, and then the game master has us make a roll. But if we know, for example, that there's a secret that so and so is so and so's sister, we can know that as players, but the tension's even better when our characters don't know it. And that's the thing. We want to make sure that things like revelations like this can happen and they can be fun. But they can also be emotionally charged when they need to be there. And so back to the quick story. Anakin is getting sucked in by the Emperor by Palpatine's needling, and Obi-Wan's like, "Don't do this, please. Come on, this isn't fair." And Anakin's like, "No, he's right. Maul will just get away." And so he force pushes Obi-Wan out, and Anakin goes to chop off Darth Maul's head, and Obi-Wan force pulls Anakin's lightsaber out of his hand, and so Anakin force crushes. Does the first Darth Vader thing, and he force crushes Darth Maul's throat. And Palpatine's like, finally found my person. And then the Jedi Council, they pull him in front of him, and this time he's under condemnation for having killed Darth Maul, and they could have found out who the Sith was, and they kick him out, and you're never going to get a seat on the council now. And Obi-Wan's kind of consternated, but he realizes that this can't keep happening. But then right outside, as he's leaving, is Palpatine, and Palpatine's like, "Hey, I heard you're not going to make the Jedi Council. How about you come work for me? You kind of actually get to give orders to the Jedi Council now. We're going to be the go-betweens between the Senate and the Jedi Council, and you've shown a great amount of dedication to the Republic, and you send a serious, strong message to the Separatists by killing that savage. And to reward you, you got the job that I previously had, which makes you in charge of the Jedi and makes you more powerful. And so, yeah, we're going to get rid of the space opera, blah blah blah. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis and all that kind of stuff. He's And this is the point. This is one thing that I love about what Belated Media says here. We're getting that thing you did, embracing the dark side, was pretty great. If you did that more often, you'd be even greater. Hey, 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 hey. And now Palpatine is starting to steer Anakin's trajectory towards the dark side, and we're watching Anakin as he slowly falls. We're not just getting what we got in the show. And and during the attack, Padme and several other senators were taken hostage by the separatists, and General Grievous goes to talk to the hostages, and Padme's like, Republic won't stand for this. You should surrender now and face death. And Grievous is like, how are things going now? Don't plan on leaving here alive. And Padme's like, turns to Owen and says, a new plan is to escape. And now Anakin's actually giving the orders to the Jedi Council and telling them how they're going to come in with the clone troopers. And he can even get in Mace Windu's face and just be like, hey, you got to listen to me now. I want you at the front of the line, kind of, pulling a King David kind of thing. And um, and he gets rid of Order 66 because what takes place in the Mos Eisley Cantina in Star Wars should have immediately triggered a kill Obi-Wan Kenobi moment. And that's another thing. This is just me, and you can take this for what it is, but uh Jedi robes, no. Jedi robes are not Tatooine robes. The only reason why Luke and Obi-Wan dress the way they do in Star Wars is because they live on Tatooine. They're wearing kind of, you know, Middle Eastern or North African kind of clothing because that's a nice, cool way to dress. And Tatooine's a desert planet. They'll dress differently if they're on different planets. There are no Jedi robes that look like that. So that's one place where I personally, this is not Bladed Media, this is me. I personally think they really screwed it up. So continuing on, um, because Order 66 is gone, and yeah, he chops. Obi-Wan chopped off the dude's hand. Then they just casually walk over to sit down with Han and Chewie, and and like I said, Anakin puts Windu in front, and they're going in with the clones to attack Mustafar, and they head in. The power grids go out. The prisoners start escaping, and during the battle, the 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 separatists are just or the separatist people are just mowing down the Jedi, and they're able to block a lot of shots, but not all of them. And there's big tanks and cannons, and Mace goes down, and Yoda can feel them all going down. And then the captured senators and Owen and Padme, they all break out, and they get linked up with the troops. And Obi-Wan, he's coming into, he's chasing down General Grievous, and Grievous is like, and Grievous jumps into the base. He contacts Sidious in a bit of a panic. He's like, Jedi's coming in their army have breached our base, and Sidious goes, simple, die. And Anakin lands and goes towards the compound, and the whole compound goes kaboom. And Anakin just thinks now that Padme's dead, and Owen and Padme are getting out, and Obi-Wan is also presumed dead as well, and Anakin is and and Obi-Wan sees Anakin and is like, Anakin, hey, hold up. And Anakin jumps through the rubble, comes on Grievous's mangled body, and is struck by extreme emotion, hatred, all of his emotions. and Anakin takes it out on Grievous's life. His lifeless frame, just shredding it with the Force. And that's when Obi-Wan reaches him. Obi-Wan tries to tell him that Padme's alive, but Anakin asks Anakin asks for Obi-Wan to lead him to Padme. He can't because he doesn't know where Lars and she are buried right now in the rubble. But they're okay. He knows they're okay. And Anakin says, "Oh, I see. Another lie from the man I thought to be a brother." And he gets angry at Obi-Wan and the Jedi Council, says they're intimidated by him, and Obi-Wan tries to calm him down, and this is where I need to. Okay. And he's like, "You thought I'd be blind to this sort of manipulation. Now, nobody's my master. I'm not a slave anymore. Get out of my way." And they end up in their lightsaber battle, and it's emotionally fueled. That's the thing, is that you want to give your players a reason to emotionally interact with this. And Anakin thinks that Obi-Wan's a traitor, and Obi-Wan's trying to stop him. And the battle is not a bunch of spectacle. We don't need swinging on chains, balancing on pipes, and floating discs and lava carrying things. It's about a broken friendship, and it's properly reflected in that arena they fight. Obi-Wan realizes that Anakin is unbalanced and exposed because his swings are fueled by hatred and anger. And Obi-Wan sadly bests his Padawan, making it a bittersweet victory. Obi-Wan grabs the lightsaber and leaves Anakin to die as Anakin curses his name. And Palpatine up above on the starship is like, "Yeah, we crushed the Separatists, hurrah, hurrah!" And Yoda brings Palpatine over, just starts a simple council. It becomes abundantly clear. Yoda realizes that Palpatine orchestrated the whole mess and is in fact his lord. And Yoda realizes there's not much he can do. If he attacks Palpatine, it would be seen as treason, jeopardize the lives of the few remaining Jedi. If he does nothing, in both cases he loses. In this more public setting, Palpatine can't outright attack Yoda, and they get to kind of smile at each other, and they're like, "This stuff isn't over." And Yoda jettisons himself off the ship. Obi-Wan's just kind of ragged and forlorn. He reaches out. Obi-Wan reaches out in the Force, and Obi-Wan asks, "What are we going to do? How are we going to take out the Sith?" Yoda says, "This isn't our fight. Like the Sith takeover, this overthrow needs to be internal and over time, but we will have a part to play. We got to be patient. Take care, Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's still much that you need to do." And then there's Padme and Owen, and he rushes to them as they leave their surface on a ship, and Owen pilots the Separatist ship through the Armada, and Obi-Wan tells what happened, how they were played and betrayed, and this starts the lie of Darth Vader killed Obi-Wan. And Padme's pregnant, and Sheila and Obi-Wan are all presumed dead. They can all reach out to Bail Organa, and that's where they start talking about what are we going to do with the baby, and um, and Padme's like, "I can keep it here and raise it," and Obi-Wan's like, "I can take it and raise it apart from all this." And Lars is like, "You all screwed up. Give me the baby, and I'll take it back to Tatooine, where nobody will ever look for it." And because you'd all be horrible parents to this child, because Padme, you and all your politics, and Obi-Wan, you and all your Jedi stuff, you guys made this all happen the way it did. And so they agree, and then surprise, it's twins. And so Owen takes the boy, and Padme keeps the girl, and we end up with a binary sunset with Obi-Wan watching from afar, and it reminds us that there's still hope out there in the universe. So that's really the end of those storylines. I'm sorry if those got boring. I promise I'll talk a little more about the stuff that, I mean, because this is something that I've watched multiple times, and that's part of the reason why I love it. And now tomorrow, I'm going to talk about running a role playing game in Star Wars universe and why I use a lot of the stuff that flat out stole from him to make a universe where my characters get to be the coolest characters in the story, and why we are going to continue to talk about the games that have inspired me, and also talk more about how to game master Savage Worlds specifically, but also just overall game master tips that will help you to do a better job in your own games and to have a fun time with it. So until then, game for good. This is Mason Emerson, Lord Beard of Ace Role Playing Games Clubs, saying, I'll see you next time.